So my goal on this one is going to be to get an array to print out, right? And mostly I'm doing this to highlight the idea of a for loop, okay? But I needed a go-to example, and arrays are kind of one of those go-to examples. Like if you read in a bunch of text from a file, you might store that in an array. If you want to put that text back out in the world, or if you want to put user input back out, right? Like you have somebody fill in a bunch of boxes in a form, probably stick those in an array. If you want to get that data back out, you need to know how to print an array. Does that make sense? So, the first thing I did is I got an array from somewhere. You guys recognize this one? Where'd I go to get an array when I needed one? Yeah, I went back to an old program that I had, and I had that random student generator thing where I learned about arrays, and there was an array in there. So I got that array and I put it in here. And then I set a size and a background. So what's this going to do if I hit go on it right now? It's going to pop up a window. Yeah. You guys see that this is yellow underlined here, the names string? Yeah. The language processing is nice enough, or the compiler for processing at least, is nice enough to highlight it if you've been silly and declared extra variables that you're not using. It does not do that with global variables, but it does it at least with local variables. Okay, so I would like to print out an array. So I'm going to try a thing called a for loop, because I've seen that in some examples. Okay? And I think that for loops look a little bit like methods, right? There's for, parentheses, brackets. What else do these look like? Yeah, they have some kind of parameter input, right? But what else looks like this? Like methods look like this, and if statements look like this, right? So, and it's complaining. Error on tokens, delete tokens. Oh. Well, that's annoying. Huh. I think they usually have I's in them. Oh, it's complaining that there aren't semicolons. Missing a semicolon.
Yeah, because it needs 3 arguments.
Error on I. Okay, so the first thing you need when you're writing a for loop is you need an initialization statement. Okay, that's the first thing that goes in here. So I'm going to declare an integer I, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. And then it's complaining because I haven't used that variable, right? But of course I haven't used it because I haven't finished writing this. What if I put an I in here? I. Error on variable. Oh, God. Okay, so I was really hoping it would kick me a Boolean error. Let me grab my example so I can get a Boolean error. Okay, so I tried something similar. So I have my initialization part of my for loop. Right, that's the first statement you need. And then I have an I in here. And it's complaining that there's a type mismatch. The integer I doesn't match with a Boolean. So what's a Boolean again? It's something that's either true or false. And I is just a number right now. Right? So 0 is neither true or false, it's just 0. So if you want to make this a Boolean, what do you need? You need some kind of condition, right? So I'm going to put in a condition kind of at random. You guys with me on this? Like this was sort of random, totally random. I just put it in for because I want it to print something out. I want it to print something out. How do I get it to print things? Oh yeah, you could make a kind of, oh. I don't want to put a draw method in here. It's not a bad idea though. Yeah, I could use a print line or a text command. I'm going to use println just because we don't use that very often. I'll probably switch this to a text command in a minute. What do I want to print out? Yeah, I want to print out the array, right? So I should put names in here. Whoa. Dude. Right? You guys read all of that jazz? It's type string brackets, right? So an array of strings of the last argument to print method, print line of object doesn't match the var_arg parameter type. Cast to object brackets to confirm non-var_arg's invocation or pass individual arguments. Whoa, dude. Right? So here's the kick about this. If it was as easy as passing the array itself to a print line, this would be a really dumb example for a for loop. Right? Because I wouldn't need the loop at all. Because I could have just passed this thing print line names. Right? I could have just been done. So what it's complaining about is that it can't print the whole array because it doesn't know how to print a whole array. What it knows how to print is like one thing. So one string, how do I get one string out of the names array? I need to pick a thing, right? You guys remember how you pick a thing out of an array? How about these guys? Right? So you need names and then the thing out of the names array you want to pick. So which thing do I want? Yeah, I want all of them, right? So let me put I in here because I feel like that should get used somewhere. And then hit go. And it makes a window and it... Oh God. You guys see what it's doing? Why is this flickering? Yeah, because it's printing Amy over and over and over again. Why, Amy, why? So there's a stop command up here, by the way, just in case you guys hadn't noticed that, which will stop it from shouting Amy at us, but it just printed Amy about a bajillion times. No, it's more than that because it's not enough. You guys see that? It's not in the draw method. This is in an actual for loop. So the for loop executes as often as it can. So the only command it has to do is go get the element out of the names array and then print it into the command line, which doesn't take much processing power. So this is probably doing this a couple of hundred times a second at the very least. So my question is, why is it printing only Amy? And why is it doing it forever?
You said I equals 0, so that corresponds to Amy, right?
Yeah. So the I is 0 corresponds to Amy. And then why is it never stopping?
Because you said if I is less than 4, well, I is always less than 4.
Yeah, you guys see that? So I set I as 0. That's what this first thing did. And then the second thing I did is, if this is true, do this stuff. Right? The for loop is a little bit like an if statement. You can actually write a poor man's for loop using if statements, but it's really, really a waste of your time. Cool? So what I need is I need to go to the next one, right? So how do I get the next name? Dude! Nice! I plus, plus 1. Plus 1. This thing. Error on plus. Okay. I equals I plus 1. There I go. Okay, now what do I expect this to do? So it sets I as 0 first, right? So it's going to print Amy, and then it's going to make I2. And then it's going to check, is 2 less than 4? Sorry, not 2, but 1. Because it started at 0, right? So it's going to go through print Amy. It's going to make I equal to 1. It's going to ask, is 1 less than 4? Is 1 less than 4? Yes. So then it's going to go in here and it's going to do that thing again. So it's going to print the name in the first slot, which is going to be... No, the name in the first... Sorry, not the 0th slot. Amy's in the 0th slot. Jared's in the first slot. And so then we're going to go make I2. When do I expect this to stop?
When I is equal to 4. No, sorry, when
I is 4, it's going to stop, which means is it going to print? Let's see. So Amy's the 0th thing, Jared's the first thing, Luke's the 2nd, Jacob's the 3rd, Chris is the 4th. Is it going to print Chris or no?
I don't think so.
No.
Why?
Because I is not
4 is not less than 4.
Because 4 is not less than 4, so it'll stop there. It won't go into the loop and do the thing in the loop. You guys see that? So if I hit go, I expect this to print out the first 4 names. Amy, Jared, Luke, Jacob, and it stopped when it hit Chris. Because Chris was the one where I equaled 4, and it broke out there. You guys cool with that? That's actually a command, break, that you can use to pop out of a for loop sometimes. It depends on the language, but break is sometimes a command that works. I haven't tried it in processing yet. Does it work in processing?
Yeah, you switch statements.
Cool.
I mean, this is based off of Java, and Java uses it.
Cool. All right, so if I wanted this to print all of them, so far I got it printing 4. Use the length. So how do you get it to length again? Names.length. So that's using the length attribute of the names object. If I hit go, I get to Cameron. Is Cameron indeed the last name in my list? Yes! Victory. Cool, right? So, that was the boring way. Let's level up just a little bit. How do we play code golf with this thing? Anybody know how to cut 2 characters out of that thing? Plus plus. That's going to be an increment up by 1. Cool. And we should get same thing. Now, I would like those names to appear in here, right? So, instead of using a print line, I'm going to use a text. Text. It's complaining that it needs 2 floats. What are the 2 floats for in a text? Yeah, those are the coordinates of where the words show up. So, where do you want the words to show up? Fine. I'll pick. I'm going to put them in the middle. So I'm going to do width over 2, comma, what's the other one? Length? Height? Okay, so now they should appear in the middle, right? Oh yeah, they'll probably appear all stacked up there. Oh well, whatever. We'll sort it out. Shit.
Oh, we never said fill or text size.
Yeah, so 1, they're the default text size, which is small, and 2, they're freaking white. Right, because this thing defaults to setting your fill white. So I need a fill command. So I'm going to set fill to 0. And I need a text size command. And while I'm at the text size command, what else should I do? Oops. While I'm next to the text size command, what else should I do with my text? What's it positioning right now? By default, remember, the text thing positions the top left corner, or bottom left corner, I think, for text boxes. So I want to text a line and a... What arguments does text a line take? There's a center, comma, center. And it's yelling at me for what? No execute command on that line. So,
Aha!
haha! Names all piled up. Crap. They're all piled up. How would I unpile them up? Wait, I have an idea. No, it needs to be more because I set the thing. Crap, they're still piled up. I just moved around where they're piled up. So what do you need to do? You don't want them to pile up, right?
Create a variable called text height and increment it by 30.
Easier, dude. Good idea, though. Like, you could definitely do that. You could make a variable called text height and then increment it along as you go. Right?
Use I.
But you can definitely use I in the for loop.
We don't multiply it by increment 1 though.
So I itself only goes up by an increment of 1, right? So if I do like 30 plus I, what do I expect to get?
Slightly less
Well,
size.
you space by like 1
Very slightly less stacked text. Which is, yeah, even less readable somehow.
So you want to multiply I by like 32 or something?
Yeah, so you want to multiply I by something like, say, 32. So now you're starting at 32 down, or at 30 down, right? And then you're going 32 more down every time you go through the loop. Bam. Oh, and it looks like I didn't need to go 30 down, right? For the first loop, I probably could have gone like... Sure. Cool. Next. Awesome. So, the tips and tricks for for loops, the things I want you to know right now, are a for statement. So a for loop has to include two things in its initial process here, right? Those are an initialize statement that has some counting variable that you're incrementing inside that loop. And then some condition for when you should stop doing this thing. And then some stuff that you're doing in the loop. You guys see that? So there's kind of three things. There's a where do I start, where do I stop, and what do I do? Cool, cool? Questions, things on loops? What's up?
A thing that I noticed, usually when we were taught it, we put the I++ also, you could put that part inside the parentheses of the original for loop. It just makes sure you don't forget that. Like right after the name's not blank, you can put that.
Yep.
And you just remove that last semicolon. It's initialized test.
Yeah, so I don't particularly like putting these in here, but it's only because I like to be able to do things like count by twos, and sometimes languages complain about this. I haven't tried it in here. Cool. So yeah, you can stick that in here. So initialize, stop, and update. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, so this is skipping every other name, right? Why is it skipping every other name? Because I did increase by 2 instead of increase by 1. I don't know, sometimes, depends on the language you're in. Plus equals works? That was my recollection. It's a job will let you do this. And does equals plus work? Ha! No. Cool. Why didn't that output anything? I'm not sure why that didn't output anything. Should have output an error at least. Okay, cool. Question, Steels? If you wanted to count by sevens, you would... Put a 7 in there? What if you wanted to skip Amy because she shouted at us earlier?
start from I equals 1.
Yeah, in your initialize statement, put I equals 1. So that'll skip Amy and go up by 2s. Take that, Amy. Any questions on this? It is worth noting that you can do a for loop in a for loop. Just saying. That might be a nice thing if you wanted to make like a grid or something. Cool? Or like a bunch of trees.